Odinga, who boycotted this month's presidential elections rerun, described the just concluded polls as a sham and added that he will announce his next course of action as a resistance movement tomorrow. He spoke to the SABC's Sarah Kimani from his Nairobi home.
First, begin with the Supreme Court ruling. It was hailed as a landmark ruling not only in Kenya, but on the African continent. Indeed, it was only the fourth time that a presidential election had been overturned by a court. And we all appreciated this and said, well, this is probably the beginning of our electoral democracy. Immediately thereafter, we petitioned the Electoral Commission to rectify things that we discovered went wrong, areas where the rigging had been done, so that the field could be level. We reduced this into a document. We called it reducible minimum conditions that needed to be met by the Electoral Commission. It was a 12-point document. But to our disappointment, the Electoral Commission refused to budge to address those issues. So when taken together, we realized it was going to amount to doing the same thing, the same way, expecting different results. And we realized that would not happen. So therefore we say that instead of tainting our image, going to a flawed process once again, it was better to save the taxpayer, to take the Kenyan voter, to save them the time and money by us not participating in the elections.
But this was your last shot. So isn't it a political suicide? You are on the ballot, you are not participating.
This is not a Raila Odinga election. This is an election for the people of Kenya. And we are saying that we do not want to institutionalize election rigging. So we said that it is basically a very bad example for the future generation of our nation if we try to institutionalize what we call electoral autocracy in the country. So we said therefore that it's better to stand on principle and sacrifice our interests in the greater good of our people.
How would you classify, as the NASA party, how do you classify the rerun, which is about to be concluded any day today?
It's a sham, it's a charade. You ask yourself, since he was just running alone, why is it necessary for the Electoral Commission to rig the numbers for him? The numbers don't even matter. You would say that, well, because he was running alone, there was no interest in these elections, so there was low turnout. But now to inflate the figures the way they've inflated the figures shows you that the Electoral Commission has not changed. If he had been running, that is exactly what they would have done to us. So this Electoral Commission is completely compromised and cannot be relied upon to deliver credible elections.
But even as you continue to complain and to contest what is happening now, President Kenyatta is likely to be announced winner either today or tomorrow.
That is something right. I mean, it's fine. It's an issue of legitimacy. It's not a question of being announced as the winner. That can be done any day. Could have even been done before. But is it going to be legitimate? Will Kenyans believe that he was really genuinely elected? Does he command the confidence and support of majority of the people of this country? That, in my view, is the question.
So with that in mind, then, will you move to court again?
No, it doesn't have to be Raila Odinga going to court. There are several Kenyans who can go to court to challenge its legitimacy. So what I'm trying to say is we are in a crisis and we must accept it. The sooner we accept that it's a crisis, the better for this country. See? Because look, we have a nation, we have a people, particularly the youth of this country. What example are we showing them? See? How do you want these youths to grow up? You know? Because the moment people lose faith and confidence in the electoral process, then anarchy becomes the order of the day.
Somebody else will say, then, what are you teaching the youth of the country when you tell them to go out on the streets to protest, when you tell them to boycott an election? Are you not disenfranchising them? Are you not setting them out on the streets for bloodshed? We've seen just in the last few days, since Thursday, 8 young people have died in protests.
I am trying to teach my people constitutionalism, that they can stand up to impunity, that they don't just have to be meek and allow other people, what you call the mighty, to have their way. That there are other ways of dealing with these issues, that you can protest, and protesting is actually guaranteed in our constitution. It is there in our human rights chapter. The right to picket, the right to demonstrate, the right to strike, the right to boycott are all guaranteed in our constitution. So these youth are exercising their democratic rights. It is the state which is unleashing terror on the innocent population that is guilty, not the other way around.
Should we probably expect then more bloodshed, more militarization, considering you have now converted NASA into what you're calling a resistance movement? Maybe just explain to us, what is what form will this resistance take?
You see, resistance does not necessarily have to be armed. It doesn't have to be violent. It's peaceful resistance. Like the civil rights movement in the United States, led by the late Dr. Martin Luther King, was a resistance movement. The Mahatma Gandhi movement that brought independence to India was a resistance movement. It was peaceful resistance against an unlawful authority. So people have a recourse to civil disobedience against a government that does not enjoy the mandate of the people. So this is what we're talking about.
But to what end? Kenyans are saying, we're tired, 700 billion shillings is being lost every day, we want to move on. Can we just conclude this and let the country get on?
Which Kenyans are tired? Kenyans are tired of this illegitimate regime. That's what they are tired of, and they want to have the rights. That's why you can see that the youth are impatient. The youth are ready to come out any day on the streets. We are the ones who are restraining them, because we believe that there are better ways of dealing with these issues. So we have not said that we are going to take up arms to fight.
You said there are better ways of dealing with the issues, the political crisis that faces the country. On Thursday, when we spoke to President Kenyatta, just after he'd cast his ballot, he said he's willing to reach out to you and he's extending a hand of friendship. Would you be willing to also reach out, sit down and have dialogue? You've done it before with President Kibaki.
You see, I asked that we talk before we went to the ballots. They said they were not ready to talk. And they even went as much as coming up with very insolent remarks that I was looking for half a loaf, when we only wanted to talk about the level playing field for the elections. They were not willing to listen to anybody. They said they're not ready to have any discussions. Okay? So it will depend on what is supposed to be discussed. Okay? What is it that you're going to put on the table? What do you
want to see discussed then?
We want to discuss the issues of how to have credible elections, credible presidential elections within 90 days.
12 billion shillings has already been spent. Before that, $45 billion. You want to take Kenyans through another election?
You see, but we told them they didn't have to spend that money. First, my dear, elections this country does not even need to cost 3 billion shillings. That is money which is going to people's pockets. Okay, those are kind of the problems that we're talking about, the wastage that we go through. That's why these things have to be printed in Dubai by Al Ghurair, because people represent Al Ghurair, commissions are being paid there. Even this Optimofo was single-sourced, again, billion shillings. You see, something that should have cost, by the estimates of experts within the Electoral Commission itself, 800 million shillings. It's contracted for 2.3 billion shillings. So all that sum total is part of the problem. Okay?
So you're saying you don't need the only thing you can discuss with President Kenyatta is another election?
I've just said that is our preoccupation right now. That's what we are talking about. But we've been talking about election all this time, and that's what we want to discuss. If that had happened before these elections, the result would have been out now. Maybe I would have lost, or maybe I would have won, the other way around. So whoever, if I'd won, Kenyatta would probably have congratulated me. If he had won, I would have congratulated him. And that would be the end of it. See? But the way we are here right now, we are in a stalemate. It's a waste of time.